All right, so you wanted to dive deep into how AI is impacting justice systems,
Uh-huh.
and specifically looking at France and Canada, right?
Yes.
You've got some reports and analyses here, and just thinking about it,
Okay.
it's pretty wild to think that AI could actually make courts faster,
Mm-hmm.
like speed up those cases, make it easier to find legal information,
Yeah.
and maybe even just make the whole system more efficient?
It's true. I mean, we are really just
What do you think?
at the very beginning stages of figuring this whole thing out,
Right,
AI
right.
and legal systems. But yeah, France and Canada are definitely ahead of the curve.
Okay.
So we'll be looking at how they're doing things differently, the potential upsides,
Yeah.
and of course, the big question, will people trust it?
Yeah, public trust is huge when we talk about justice.
Exactly.
So let's start with France.
Okay.
We've got this article from info.gov.fr. It features Audrey Farrugia.
Mm-hmm.
She's a magistrate, and really key in these AI initiatives in France. And she talks about tools they're already using, like a system that automatically takes out sensitive data
Wow.
from legal documents. Can you
Yeah,
imagine?
that would save so much time.
So much time. And then there's AI for lawyers to do legal research
Uh-huh.
and even help write up arguments. It's like France is going all in
It sounds like, yeah, they're really trying to build this whole AI ecosystem
on building a whole AI ecosystem for their legal system.
for their justice system. And they're even thinking about a justice label
Whoa, a justice label.
to make sure that any AI solution used in their courts meets certain standards for,
Oh, okay.
reliability, security. Like, they're really focused on quality control.
So they're building it themselves and making sure it's good. So what does that mean for, like, the everyday person in France?
Right.
If they need to deal with the legal system, does this mean court cases will be faster?
Well, potentially.
Or will it be easier for someone to represent themselves without a lawyer?
You could definitely see it speeding things up if AI is doing a lot of the routine work and helping judges analyze evidence and stuff.
Yeah.
Plus, if legal info and procedures become easier for people to access,
Right.
that could be really empowering, especially if you can't afford a lawyer.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But Farrugia also mentions this potential problem.
Huh.
Like, what if there's this huge surge in legal requests?
I see.
Because tools like ChatGPT make it easier for people to file complaints.
Oh, interesting.
So AI could make things more efficient, but also create way more work.
Yeah, it's like solving one problem but creating another.
Right.
You'd need more resources, probably more judges, even more AI just to manage it all.
It's almost a paradox.
It is kind of.
AI making things faster, but also leading to more cases, more work for the system.
It's something to think about, for sure.
And something else Farrugia brought up that I thought was really interesting was France's focus on data security
Uh-huh.
and using AI systems built within the country.
Right.
They really seem to want to control their own data and technology.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
There is this tension between using the absolute cutting-edge AI tech,
Which is often.
which a lot of times is developed by big companies outside France.
Right, yeah.
And then there's maintaining your data sovereignty, keeping it secure. So by building their own systems, France gets to protect sensitive legal data, and they're not relying on other countries for this vital tech.
So it's like France is going all in on building this secure AI foundation
Sounds like
for their justice system.
Yes.
But what about Canada?
That's a good question. Their approach is a little different.
Yeah, they seem to be doing things their own way, right?
They are. Canada's approach is more focused on specific ways to use AI in their system,
Like what?
like legal research, predicting case outcomes, things like that.
Interesting.
And they have this unique challenge because they're a bilingual country.
Okay.
So they're looking at how AI can help translate legal stuff between English and French.
That makes sense. It seems very strategic, like
It is.
using AI where it really makes a difference for efficiency and access.
Exactly. And another big thing for Canada is their focus on ethical frameworks
Okay.
to guide how AI is developed and used in their justice system.
So they're thinking about the potential problems too.
Absolutely. They want to make sure these AI tools are used responsibly.
So we've got these two contrasting approaches. France building its own secure system
Right.
and Canada taking a more targeted approach, prioritizing ethics.
It's fascinating.
It really is to see how different countries are handling this new frontier.
Yeah. It raises some important questions.
Like what?
Like, is one approach better than the other? Or are they both valid ways of dealing with AI injustice?
Those are some really good questions, and ones we'll definitely have to explore more as we keep going with this deep dive.
I agree.
But before we move on, I want to take a quick detour and talk about something that's really important to me.
Okay, sure.
I'm really passionate about making these complex topics,
Mm-hmm.
like AI, accessible to everyone. That's why I'm so excited about this podcast.
It's a great show.
And being able to share these deep dives with all of you.
It is.
But making a show like this takes a lot of time and resources.
Right.
And I'm always looking for ways to reach a wider audience.
That's important. Reaching more people makes these conversations even more impactful.
Exactly. And that's why I'm asking for your support.
Of course.
If you enjoy this podcast and want to help me keep making these deep dives, there are a couple of things you can do.
Okay.
First, subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music.
That's a great way to help spread the word.
It really helps us get discovered by more people who are interested in these topics.
Definitely.
And if you're feeling really generous,
Okay.
you can also support my crowdfunding campaign for a photo exhibition I'm putting together.
Oh, cool. What's it about?
I'm really excited about this project. It's all about the intersection of art and technology.
Sounds interesting.
You can find more information on my website.
I'll check it out.
Thanks so much for your support.
No problem.
Now let's get back to our AI and justice deep dive.
Right. Where were we?
We were talking about the differences between France and Canada's approaches.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's super important to remember that there's no one perfect solution for AI and justice.
I agree.
Different countries will have different priorities and concerns.
Sure.
And the best way to do things will probably depend on the specific situation.
It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Right. So what are some of the key differences we're seeing between France and Canada?
All right. Well, one big one is how they approach data security and control. France, as we talked about, is really into building their own AI systems
Yeah.
and keeping control of their data.
Yeah.
They're concerned about national security and data sovereignty. They want to make sure sensitive legal information stays protected
Makes sense.
and that they're not relying on companies from other countries for this crucial tech.
Okay. And Canada. They don't seem as worried about building everything themselves.
No, they seem more open to using AI solutions developed by companies outside Canada.
Interesting.
They still care about data security,
Sure.
but they're maybe more focused on finding the absolute best tools.
Regardless of where they come from.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating how different priorities can lead to such different approaches.
It really is.
What about the ethical side of things? We talked about Canada's emphasis on those ethical frameworks.
Yeah.
But what's France doing? Are they thinking about these concerns too?
Yes, they are. France is very concerned about the ethical implications.
Okay.
In fact, you could argue that their focus on building their own systems is a way to make sure those systems align with their own values and legal principles.
Interesting.
They have a strong history of protecting individual rights and privacy,
Right.
so they're going to be very careful about how they implement AI.
To make sure it respects those values.
Exactly.
It's not just about the tech, it's about values and traditions too.
Absolutely. How AI is used in justice systems will always reflect the values of those societies.
That's a really good point.
And that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
To think about the big picture.
And consider those broader impacts.
Exactly.
Well said. Now let's shift back to Canada for a bit.
Okay.
We talked about their focus on specific AI applications.
Right.
Like legal research and predicting case outcomes. Can you give us a bit more detail on how those tools are actually being used?
So in Canada, there are a lot of legal tech companies popping up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're developing these AI-powered tools for lawyers and judges.
Cool.
For example, some platforms use natural language processing to analyze legal documents, find relevant precedents, and even help write legal arguments.
Whoa.
It saves lawyers a ton of time and lets them focus on the more strategic parts of their cases.
That sounds super helpful.
It is.
And what about predicting case outcomes? How accurate are those systems?
Well, that's a bit more complicated. It's still early days. Some researchers are developing AI models
Okay.
that can look at past cases and find patterns
You predict.
to try to predict what might happen in future cases.
Wow.
But there's a lot of debate about how accurate and fair these systems really are.
Huh.
Some people worry they might just perpetuate the biases that already exist in the legal system,
Yeah, I can see that.
or even lead to a situation where justice is basically decided by an algorithm.
That's a scary thought.
It is a bit.
We've talked a lot about the potential good that AI could do,
Yeah.
but we can't forget about the risks either.
Absolutely not. And I think both France and Canada are aware of that.
Yeah.
They're both approaching this carefully, recognizing that AI can be both transformative and disruptive.
Very well said.
Thank you.
This has been such a fascinating discussion so far,
It has.
and I'm really looking forward to digging even deeper.
Me too.
But I think we've covered a lot in this first part.
We have.
So for our listeners, we'll be continuing this conversation in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty of how AI is being used.
Okay.
Look closer at those ethical considerations
Uh-huh.
and discuss what all this means for the future of lawyers and judges.
It'll be interesting to see where this all goes.
Definitely. Yeah.
See ya.
Welcome back to our deep dive on AI and justice.
All right, so last time we were really getting into how France and Canada are taking such different approaches with AI and their legal systems. And France seems really set on building their own secure AI tools and keeping that tight control over data.
Right.
But that approach has its downsides, right?
It does. It's like, this whole idea of digital sovereignty. It gives them a lot of control. And maybe they depend less on foreign companies.
Yeah.
But there's this risk that they'll miss out on big innovations happening elsewhere.
Tough one.
It is.
It's like, do you want to be in the lead even if it's a bit risky?
Right.
Or play it safe and maybe fall behind?
Exactly.
And those are huge stakes when we're talking about justice. Absolutely.
But let's get practical for a second. What are some of the AI tools being developed for courtrooms right now?
Okay.
We've seen stuff about analyzing legal documents, predicting case outcomes, even helping judges with sentencing. Are we talking about robot judges taking over?
Haha, not quite yet.
Okay, good.
I mean, the reality is most of these AI tools are designed to help legal professionals.
So they're not replacing them.
Not replacing them, more like giving them a super-powered assistant
Okay.
who can analyze tons of data and spot patterns that humans might miss.
So like a judge could use AI to go through every similar case
Yeah.
to see how sentencing usually works for that type of crime.
Exactly. That kind of analysis could help make sentencing fairer and more consistent.
But it's still the human judge making the final call.
Always. There are always things an algorithm might not understand about a specific case.
Right, because law isn't always black and white.
Definitely not.
There are those gray areas, judgment calls.
Yeah.
The human element of justice is something you just can't program.
You got it. We can't just boil justice down to algorithms and data.
Right.
Things like empathy, understanding, and good judgment.
Yeah.
Those are always going to be essential.
AI can help with those.
It can support them, but not replace them.
Now, something we talked about before that I keep thinking about is how AI could impact access to justice. It seems like these tools could make legal help more accessible.
Absolutely.
For people who can't afford expensive lawyers or who have trouble navigating the system.
Imagine having AI-powered chatbots.
Okay.
That could give you basic legal guidance, help you understand your rights, or explain the process for common issues.
That would be amazing.
It would be a game changer, especially for people in rural areas.
Or anyone facing barriers to accessing legal services.
Exactly.
In our digital world, those user-friendly AI resources could be really empowering.
They could.
But we can't just assume
Right.
that something is good just because it's AI-powered.
You're right. We have to be careful. Make sure these tools are actually helpful for everyone.
Not just people who already understand all the legal jargon.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to the ethical side of things.
Always comes back to ethics.
It does. What are some of the biggest ethical worries when we're talking about using AI in such a high-stakes area like the justice system?
Well, bias is a huge one.
Yeah.
If the data used to train an AI is biased, the AI will learn and maybe even amplify those biases.
That's scary.
And that's a massive problem for things like predicting if someone will commit another crime.
Or even suggesting sentences.
Exactly. We have to make absolutely sure that these tools don't make existing inequalities even worse.
How do we even do that?
That's the big question.
Can we make truly unbiased AI? Especially since human biases are already in the data they learn from.
It's not just about making the tech unbiased.
Okay.
It's about fixing those underlying societal biases.
So it's bigger than just the tech.
It is. It's a multifaceted problem. You need diverse teams building the AI, rigorous testing, and constant monitoring for bias.
That sounds really complex.
It is.
And then there's the issue of transparency.
Right.
If an AI is helping a judge make a decision, shouldn't the person on trial have the right to know how that AI works?
Absolutely. They should know what factors it's considering, how it's coming to its conclusions.
Transparency builds trust.
Exactly, especially in a system with so much power.
If we don't have transparency, these systems become like black boxes,
Right.
and people lose trust in the legal process.
Transparency and accountability go hand in hand.
So if an AI makes a mistake, who's to blame?
Exactly. Is it the judge, the programmer, the company that made the software?
Those are tough questions.
They are. Our legal and ethical systems haven't caught up yet.
It's like we're in the Wild West of AI.
A little bit.
We have this powerful new tech,
Yeah.
but we don't have the rules figured out yet,
We need to have these conversations now.
while it's still developing.
Exactly. We need to be proactive, anticipate the risks and benefits,
Yeah.
have open discussions, and create ethical guidelines and regulations.
And make sure it's used responsibly.
Responsibly and ethically in the pursuit of justice.
So we've talked about some of the ethical worries,
Mm-hmm.
but let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What does this all mean for the future of justice?
Mm.
Are we going to have robots deciding our fate in court?
I don't think robots are replacing judges anytime soon.
Okay, that's good.
But AI will probably change how justice systems work.
In what way?
It could lead to faster processing times, more consistent sentencing,
Okay.
and better access to legal information.
But it's not all good.
No, it could also make existing inequalities worse.
Right.
Erode public trust, or even lead to a kind of dehumanized justice system.
Where algorithms make decisions without considering individual circumstances.
Right.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
We are.
The choices we make now about how we develop and use AI will have huge consequences.
Absolutely. It's a defining moment. And it's up to all of us to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
Demand transparency and accountability, and make sure AI is used to create a more just and equitable world.
I love that, using AI to create a more just and equitable world.
That's the goal.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Right.
we still have Canada to discuss.
Yes, we do.
We touched on it earlier,
Yeah.
but I want to go deeper into how they're approaching all of this.
Canada's approach is interesting. They're really focused on those ethical frameworks and guidelines.
We keep coming back to them.
We do, because they're essential.
It seems like they're not just thinking about the technology,
Right.
but about its impact on society.
Exactly. They're asking those big questions about human rights, fairness,
Yeah.
the kind of justice system they want to build.
It's almost like they're taking a more philosophical approach.
I think that's a fair assessment. They're trying to get ahead of the curve
Okay.
by establishing those ethical guidelines early on.
And they're not just talking about it.
Nope, they're putting it into practice.
Give us some examples. How are those ethical considerations showing up in how they're using AI tools?
Okay, so take risk assessment tools, for example.
Okay.
Those are used to predict how likely someone is to commit another crime.
Right.
And those tools have been criticized.
For being biased.
Exactly, especially against certain groups like minorities.
Yeah.
Canada has been leading the way in developing guidelines.
For how to use those tools ethically.
Yeah, emphasizing transparency, fairness, and human oversight.
It's one thing to talk about ethics,
It is.
but it's another thing to actually put those principles into action.
Absolutely. And Canada's also being proactive about educating legal professionals
About AI.
about AI, its implications.
So judges and lawyers need to understand how it works,
They do.
what it can and can't do,
Yeah.
and how to use it ethically.
It's like AI literacy is becoming a core skill for the legal profession.
That's a good way to put it. They're realizing that AI isn't going away.
It's here to stay.
The legal profession has to adapt.
It does.
It's like we're seeing a whole new era of law emerging,
It is.
where
Yeah.
technology and human judgment are going to be intertwined.
And Canada, with their focus on ethics and education, is trying to guide us towards a more just future.
Absolutely. And they're not afraid to ask the tough questions.
You know what?
They see the potential risks of AI,
They do.
but they're still optimistic about how it can improve things.
It's a balancing act.
It is.
And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about for now.
Definitely.
We've explored this complex world of AI and justice,
Yeah.
from those different approaches in France and Canada to the ethical dilemmas and how it could impact the future of law.
Still a lot to take in.
It is. And in the last part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to bring it all together.
Sounds good.
Look at the bigger societal implications
Mm-hmm.
and what this all means for the future of justice itself.
Can't wait.
See you then.
See you there.
Welcome back to our final part of this AI and justice deep dive. We've been through a lot, haven't we?
We have. It's been quite a journey.
We started with those different approaches, then those ethical challenges, and now we're getting to the really big questions, the ones that keep legal experts up at night.
The philosophical questions, right?
Exactly. The ones that make philosophers scratch their heads.
Like, what does justice even mean in a world where AI can predict how a case will turn out?
Right. If AI can analyze all that legal data and predict outcomes,
with pretty good accuracy.
does that change the very idea of justice itself?
It really makes us rethink some fundamental concepts.
Like what?
Fairness, impartiality, even free will. When you bring in algorithms that can potentially predict what a person will do,
Yeah.
it adds a whole new dimension.
It's almost like we're saying,
It's like saying someone's future is already decided.
if an AI tells us someone is likely to commit a crime again,
Right, if it says they're high risk, does that mean it's inevitable?
where does human choice fit into all of this?
Exactly.
And then there's that whole issue of bias.
Yeah,
We've talked about it a lot.
we have.
Like, AI can reflect those biases from the data it learns from, but it could also help us see those biases more clearly than ever before.
It's like holding a mirror up to ourselves.
To society, to our legal systems.
And seeing all those cracks and flaws magnified.
Yeah, AI could help us identify those blind spots
Those unconscious biases.
that we don't even realize we have.
And use that knowledge to build a fairer system.
So AI could actually push us
It could push us to be more fair.
to be more impartial than we would be on our own.
Potentially, yes.
But let's be real, even if we solve the tech problems
Yeah.
and the ethical challenges,
Uh-huh.
there's still the human element.
Right.
Will people trust AI
That's the key question.
to play a role in something as important as justice?
Building trust requires transparency,
Mm.
accountability, and open conversation.
Between everyone involved, the courts, the tech people, the public,
Everyone.
people need to understand how these systems work
How they work, what the safeguards are.
and how their rights are protected.
Exactly. If we don't have that,
AI could actually make people trust the legal system less.
instead of more.
It can't be some secret
It's
conversation,
happening behind closed doors.
just in courtrooms and tech labs.
This affects everyone.
And we all need to be a part of figuring out how to use AI in our legal systems.
I need to be involved.
It's like a learning curve for all of us.
It is.
We need to learn about AI, what it can do,
What it can't do.
and how we want to use it as a society.
We can't just leave it to the experts.
I agree. And this isn't a one-time thing.
No, it's ongoing.
As AI keeps changing, we have to keep reevaluating
Evaluate our assumptions, update our guidelines,
and make sure these technologies are truly helping us achieve justice.
not making things worse.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps on this AI and justice journey?
Well, we need more research, not just on the tech itself,
Okay.
but on those ethical and societal impacts.
Yeah.
We need strong legal frameworks.
To address bias.
Bias, transparency, and who's responsible when things go wrong.
And those frameworks need to be adaptable.
They do, because AI is evolving so fast.
How can we create rules that will still be relevant in the future?
It's a tough challenge, but just as important as the rules
Yeah.
is education.
Judges, lawyers
Whatever you want.
need to understand AI better
They need to know its limitations.
and how to use it ethically.
It's almost like AI literacy should be a basic requirement for everyone.
In this digital age,
I think so.
the choices we make today about AI and justice
They will have a huge impact
on the future.
for generations to come.
It's a bit overwhelming,
It is.
but also kind of exciting.
We're shaping the future right now.
We really are, and with careful thought
Open discussion.
and a commitment to using this technology for good.
We can create a future where AI helps us achieve a more just and equitable world.
That's a future worth fighting for.
It is.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
It has been a fascinating conversation.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from those different approaches to those really big questions about ethics and society.
It's been a journey
I hope this has made you curious
and inspired you to think critically about this.
about AI and justice.
Absolutely.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Keep thinking about these issues. Keep talking about them.
It's important.
Help us all navigate this complex and exciting world of AI and justice.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.